You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's show. Really excited to have you here. A couple minutes late, just doing some stuff with Todd LaRue, getting him all sorted out for bed. So good stuff there. Let's see. Gene is here. Always have to wait for Gene to be here before we do the usual.
Recording in progress.
There it is. Recording is in progress. Thank you so much, Gene. We would have many more episodes I have to rip from YouTube without you. All right, let's see here. Got information out on the social right now. I'm going to go spam the Discord channel. So first plug of the night, if you're not a member of our Discord channel and joining us for the first time, be sure to check that out. Let's see here. Announcements. Let's get here live with our round 7 preview episode. And copy that stream. Good. YouTube makes it very easy to copy the stream. That's very good. Publish. So I'm pretty sure when I publish, people from other places who are subscribed to our announcements hear that, and then I go over to the main channel and just post it again. And so I'm still pretty sure that people in the main chat could hit twice.
I don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm happy for you.
There you go. So they get that. I get little emotes and stuff up there, but all right, there we go. Close that. Close that right there. Excellent. So we are going to be starting very good. Let's see here. Everyone's here. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider. We come to you live pretty much every week, every Monday, as long as we can with schedules, to talk about the latest results and our upcoming thoughts for the official MLS fantasy game. Please do hit the like and subscribe button if you are here for the first time and like this type of content. It helps us so much to get it spread around, and you'll be able to be here whenever we come in live. That's pretty much it. So excited to have a new guest for everyone tonight, and we'll let him introduce himself very quickly. Social is out on Twitter X and Blue Sky, so if you'd be so kind to retweet those, that helps so much. And with that, we will get started. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of Round 7 of the 2025 MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by the end of the Vermees era in Sporting Kansas City. Small moment of silence there. No, actually brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Learn more over at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our special guest, Jimmy King, lead Philadelphia Union writer for the Philly Sports Network. How are you all doing tonight?
Great.
Ashley, you go first.
I'm great.
All right, who's to blame? Who's to blame now? Let's see here.
I can't fill those shoes.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Jimmy's going to be the blame. So there we go. Well, welcome so much coming on the show tonight, Jimmy. I know that this is not your first dip into the fantasy arena, so we're really excited to hear your thoughts and insights there. But for people who don't know you, haven't seen you before, if you want to just give us a quick little intro to you, and then we'll have a few questions and jump into our round review.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. First off, wanted to say thank you. I've been listening to this podcast and paying attention in the Discords and all the other parts of the community for a long time. So when Matt reached out to me and asked me to be on, it was a very easy decision, and I'm really happy to be here. And I love this weird little game that we have and community that we have in MLS Fantasy. And even though I'm having probably the worst season I've ever had,
We all are, Jimmy. It's okay.
Fantasy's a long season. Things can turn around quick, and the good thing about MLS Fantasy is with our different little sections of Champions League qualifications, there's still things to aim for down the road. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be talking. Thank you again for having me. as for who I am, as you said, Reed, I am the lead writer for Philly Sports Network, which is an independent organization out of Philly that covers and is credentialed for all 5 sports teams. Really awesome stuff. If you have any interest in Philly sports, whether that be the Union, the Eagles, Phillies, any of those teams, head over to Philly Sports Network. There's a huge group of writers that are putting in a lot of work, and included in that is the Union team, which is the small guy in a very big sports market. But I'm happy to be leading that front and be kind of the face of the Union team for Philly Sports Network, and happy to kind of join you guys here and give my insights on the Union this year.
Awesome. Well, we are so happy to have you. And before I get to the little fantasy interview questions we have to start out with a little Philly specific one. So we were talking before the show about how Philly has been this like just annual go-to for fantasy points, but last year was a bit of a hiccup. But you're strong out of the gate this year.
Yep.
You missed the playoffs, but you seem to be bouncing back. What do you attribute that to, this reset that they've had?
Yeah, sure. So I think the thing that you can contribute it to most is in the offseason, Ernst Tanner, the Union's GM, put kind of put all his eggs into one basket. And what I mean by that is he sat there and said, "This is how we want to play. This is the style we want to play. This is the type of coach we want to come in to play that style, and these are the types of players we want to come in and play that style." And previously, that wasn't exactly happening as much as he had wanted it to. Ernst Tanner wants to play, for lack of better terms, a Red Bull style of playing, very high pressing, turn the other team over and counter them with quick direct passes, and that's why you see a lot of like one-touch goals for the Union. You know, those they're tapping in goals right in front of net. And so I think with kind of a little bit of turnover this offseason, both in the coaching staff and the player personnel, and bringing in people that are committed to playing a specific style that Ernst Tanner thinks is the right style for this team, and with a new voice in the locker room, things are clicking. And I have to say I'm surprised, and not that I'm surprised that it's clicking. I'm just surprised that it's clicking so early. I always thought this team was going to be a playoff team. They just missed playoffs last year and missed Andre Blake for a considerable amount of the season. If you got to figure, if he plays like 5 more games, they get, I don't know, 5-6 points out of that. You can say they win or 1 or 2 of those games, and they missed playoffs by 3 points. So I've always thought they were going to make playoffs this year, but I thought they were going to start a little slow, have some growing pains. And I still think they're going to have growing pains this season. But they've started really strong, and they're banking points early. And I think that's more than you can ask for if you're a Union fan.
Yeah, and I know that Baribo was absolutely a great one to lean into for early value game with fantasy. So transitioning to that, give us just a little brief history into your experience with fantasy MLS and how you got into the game.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I big sports fan overall. Had played a lot of the fantasy games, NFL, MLB, all that kind of stuff. And I've always been an MLS fan, but I've always struggled to I had struggled to keep myself interested year in and year out. I would be really interested one year, and then the next year I'd kind of fall off. And I thought that a really good way that could keep me entertained and interested every year, all throughout the year, was to play fantasy. And it has me watching games that I would never watch, in hoping that some like 4.5 million guy that I've never heard of keeps a clean sheet or scores. That's like the beautiful part of this game, and you get to watch games you never would have even considered. So that's kind of why I started playing fantasy. And then once I like kind of found the like very small community that was in MLS, I figured out that there was like ways that you could really gain an advantage on other people not inside the community, and that were just kind of, running the game as if they were playing NFL fantasy or MLB fantasy. or Premier League fantasy even. So yeah, I have to say that a lot of me getting into fantasy was just I wanted to be more interested in the league, and I wanted to stay up to date on players that weren't on the Union or who the Union were playing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
so many of us have gotten into the game, and it's just been a fantastic gateway for people to learn the league. Has always been a big focus for us too. What is your general approach when you're building your fantasy team?
I've always started, and maybe maybe this is like totally because of you guys, but I've always started back to front with the goalkeepers and defenders. Um, but I recently started to not do that as much because I felt like defenders have been so hard to come by
Mm-hmm.
consistent points this year, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was just beating myself over the head trying to figure out what the good value defenders and who the best premium defenders were for the week. And um so recently I've started to go in reverse and give myself a headache the other way, and then get to the end of the lineup and not have any money for my defenders. So it typically I try to start with this season. I've been trying to just start with really cheap defenders that I know are going to play, and then trying to pinpoint who I think the best premium midfielders and forwards are. Which is giving me a really hard time this season because no one's staying consistent.
Yeah, I think that'll be a theme this show as well. Final question that we have for you: what advice would you get to new fantasy players starting or managers starting in 2025?
I get involved in the community. I know that's like what everyone says on here, but I think the other thing about it is that every year more and more people pop up that are writing little articles or making YouTube shorts or putting their own little insights and thoughts and stuff that can help you stay consistent and stay on top of the game. And I think not only that, but I think the coverage around the league as a whole is getting more accessible and more in depth. Injury statuses and updates come out a little bit quicker than they used to, and all those sorts of things. So I think just staying on top of the people that put out content covering both the game of fantasy and the league is an
Yeah.
important thing for a new player for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. And we're really excited to hear about the insights that you have to bring to the show tonight.
Yeah.
So let's just get started right now with our round 6 recap. This was a fun round. I thought this was a fun round. So, Ashley, let us know how you did. And your
ACG
takeaways.
is it back? ACG is it back? Always Captain Heel. It's not, but he's back a little bit. What a good round for him. New England's been an interesting team this season and last season, I think it's fair to say. So to see Heel, on the team of the week, scoring a brace, even though one was a PK, still that free kick was fantastic. It's nice to see, the players that we know and love from fantasy having a good round, because we've talked about that probably ad nauseum, but it has been an inconsistent season for the power players. It's been a very productive season for everyone's sub 9 mil. So that was great to see. I was very surprised to see Charlotte get Rocky Mountain stomped. Colorado is another team that I think should have some more stock put into them than they have. But they've also been inconsistent, and Charlotte has been a very tight defense, a relatively consistent offense. So for them to, the altitude, whatever you want to call it, but that was definitely a result I didn't see coming. But what a game from Mihailovic. So good week to have him if you did. I did not. San Diego besting LAFC in their first meeting. I'm gonna be honest, even with the state of play LAFC have had this season, was surprising to me. I liked it. I love LAFC, one of my favorite teams to pull from in fantasy because they're just so damn good. Like an annoying amount, but still. And San Diego is a lot of players we don't quite know yet, and definitely a couple fantasy options have jumped out in these first couple weeks, but that was really surprising to me. And then I think from most of the chats I've had, I'm sure there'll be people who said, I knew it, and great for you. I was very surprised to see Austin, who have been a little pitter-puttery offensively and not as solid as previous seasons defensively, go into St. Louis and take all 3 points. I think a lot of people were interested in St. Louis defenders or even stacking those defenders and goalkeepers. But Austin with the, there was a lot of rotation in the St. Louis midfield. And then I think just one regular defender out, but that was very surprising to me. Couple of disappointments that I think a lot of people will feel is Yeboah and Kuipers. I'll take the blame for the latter. If you heard on the pod last week, I told everybody I'm picking him up. He didn't hit for me the first time I picked him up, so just know. And I hope people heeded that warning, because not only did I pick him up, but I captained him, and both of them were just real womp womps. Something that was disappointing for me was not taking Albert Rusnak this round. I'll talk about that when we get to picks, but I've been very hesitant on him this season, especially when the Sounders were in CCC. But he is just really picking up those goals, assists, and bonus points. So very frustrated that as a homer, I still didn't grab him this week. And just most midfielders. This is another round where generally, when you look at the team of the week, most of those midfielders would have never crossed my mind. Some of them, sure, maybe, right? A little differential or just overlooked, but just a really surprising midfielder week for me. And then just general takeaways. Like I said, I won't go into too much detail. I think we've brought it up for at least 3 weeks now, but it was just another week where cheaper options and secondary names took all the points. DaCosta for Portland, 3 points. Anthony and Felipe Mora, team of the week. No one's looking at that game and thinking, Anthony, that's who I should pick up this week, not the DP that everyone's talking. So it's just it's very consistent now, I would say, and I don't know when it will end.
That's part of what makes it fun. Jimmy.
Yeah.
How'd you do? What's your takeaways?
My takeaways from this week actually kind of touched on a little bit, but San Diego, I mean, I know people have talked about this with them being a new team, but every week they just continue to surprise me. They seem like maybe the most put together expansion side to start a season. And most expansion sides, there's usually 1 or 2 players that you could maybe throw in if the matchup's right, or if they have an early game or a late game or whatever. But I think that San Diego already has a number of really viable options, both on both sides of the ball. The other surprise for me, although I don't know how fantasy relevant it'll be for your player picks, but maybe your matchups in how you consider them, is Peter Vermees being out of SKC. A lot of times we see teams have a little bit of a manager bounce after a new manager comes in, but who knows how that team's going to take that news and which way they'll end up going. So that's kind of one that I'm looking to keep an eye on as far as matchups and targeting against them for the next couple weeks. My disappointments, likewise, of Ashley, Kuipers and Yeboah, really just did not come through. And I was really banking on both of those. Those were 2 of the first names in my team this week. I don't know why. I just had such I had such strong feelings about both of them, especially after I think Yeboah had a pretty good week last week. I think it was the week he had 2 goals. So got burned by that one. And luckily I didn't end up taking anyone on Houston, even though the person I probably would have taken was Jack McGlynn, who did get an assist. But Houston, although they did score a goal, they're really struggling to create chances. I think they only have put 10 shots on goal the entire season, and I think I read a stat that they only have like 6 in the last 4 games or something. So I guess you could say that maybe they're starting to trend upwards a little bit if they have 6 in the last 4 games, and only 10 across the season. But Yeah, disappointing from Houston to not at least be creating a little bit more with offensively there. The big takeaways for me, um, clean sheets continue to be hard to come by. I weirdly, even though I'm having a bad season, I am doing really well with picking out clean sheets every week.
Nice.
But regardless, there was only 4 this last week, which goes more to my point of not beating yourself over the head trying to come up with expensive defender picks. I think things are so inconsistent with defenses right now that your money is well spent in other places on the field. And then like Ashley talked about, the inconsistency from the chalk players or the more expensive players is just, I think it's killing everyone right now. And I think a lot of people are making good picks one week and then they feel really good in their picks next week. And players that have been doing well just absolutely fall off the face of the earth the week that you pick them. And I guess it feels nice to know that I'm not the only one going through that, but it really is frustrating now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a rough week to get some of the picks, or just been a rough season. I know I've seen a lot of people talking about how they're struggling at the start, and I think it has been because there's the CCC coming in there and just the early international break coming on top of all that. And
it's not even that. We've talked about this, you and I, almost at least the last 3-4. The dream team every week, there's 1, 2, maybe 3. Do you know what I mean? Like the dream teams have been wild.
Yeah.
The most, and it's not the same people every week, right? But each week is a new set of players that are, 2, 3, 4 on the call sheet for their own team. And that's what's maybe that is CCC and stuff, but I don't remember a season that has been gone this many rounds with like the big names not being consistent, or no one being consistent, if I'm being honest, right?
Sure. So I ended up on 62 points, and which is probably kind of average when I look through my score, because I caught the Minnesota clean sheet, so I got a couple of points there with St. Clair and with Dugan. Didn't have anybody else of my 3 back line hit, so Alba failed for me, and then ended up going with Finn Sermon, who got 4 points, which was better than my bench play, which was Brooks Lennon, which kind of didn't see that coming. But I went with 3 Atlanta players on my bench, and that bounced me back because I had Almiron and I had Latte Lath on my bench, and so I brought in that 9, brought in that 11 with a scrub, which actually had me taking Dyer out of my team. Which overall one extra point. So it all worked with that.
Was Latte Lath your Messi replacement, Reid?
Yes.
Yes, me
yes,
too.
he was. Unfortunately, Yeboah was my Messi captain replacement, and that gave me a whopping 3 extra points right there. So didn't have the great thing there. On my midfield, had Acosta with 7, had let's see here, Zickernagel with 6 coming in with me with Chicago, so that was fine. Those are some average points, so that was good right there. Almiron, of course, came in with a 9, which is great. Mukhtar got the 2, which I knew that however that ended up being with that game was going to be just mixed emotions for me. Misses the PK, fantasy-wise, but Celentano played out of his mind in that game. I think he came away with a 9, and so Cincinnati defense isn't something that people are looking at right now fantasy-wise necessarily for clean sheets, because of the rotation that's going on there, but had some crazy standout games right there. Otherwise, just came in there 62, mix bagged with my head-to-heads, so that's why I say I think this is probably going to be kind of in the middle of the road of where people hit this round, just based on the way the head-to-heads went. Saw some fantastic scores in chat, though, so you guys are absolutely killing it, Meg, with the 88. That's fantastic right there. The thing about the Vancouver-Toronto game is what was big surprises for me is I expected a lot more from Vancouver since they're in this CCC break right now. But when you start looking back through, they've had 2 of their last 3 games where they have been playing against some of the weaker defenses in the league, and they've not won, or they've not been able to put up goal scorings that you would maybe expect that they could do right there with like Gald and White coming in with some of that firepower that they have, and that's a little concerning, I think, for Vancouver. They've got some OP players, which can be nice, but That was a surprise to me. They didn't do better against Toronto. But hey, you got the clean sheet points at least if you went with there. Of course, Messi, the surprise, didn't start. He did start. For me, ironically, had I kept him and left him with the captain, would have scored more points for me than my captain, which I specifically told you not to do if he was on the bench. But as we saw, this is why that if you can, or if you want to, if Messi does not start in the 18 or in the 11, but he's in the 18, he's often still worth having on your bench as a bench play, and we saw that with this round. Then I already mentioned Celentano. Staying with my FC Cincinnati, disappointment. Orshano not getting more points. I mean, he's getting into the action. He's getting some of those underlying stats with the key passes, but he's just not coming away with the goals, and he's not coming away with assists or with the clean sheets. And as a defender, which is what he's at, that's really what he needs to have happen to get those big points. So it's a very big risk versus reward with going with someone like Orshano right now, maybe more so than when you're looking at people like Kai Wagner and with Brooks Lennon. But because he's so much in that offensive area, then those guys just playing the wings. He's getting in there and mixing it up. Then some of the other general fantasy takeaways that I had, actually already touched on Heel coming away with the brace, coming into Cincinnati for this next coming round. Cincinnati with that recovering defense. This is the first big game for Heel this season. So is this going to be form that's going to be continuing? New England is still a team that I'm having a hard time really pinning down for what I want to think about them going forward. Last week we talked about Moranchuk versus Almiron and how their points panned out. The comment I made was, and this is why I ended up going with Almiron, was when he's back in the team, it tends to shift to him and take some away from Moranchuk. But that didn't happen this round. Almiron got 9, Moranchuk got 10, so they're both kind of mixing it up. And so I want to see where that leads us as the season goes on. It's a matchup or it's a pairing I'm keeping my eye on. Is this going to be what we on this show call the classic Houston situation, where you've got multiple players who are getting in there sharing the points instead of trying to find that one like fantasy gem that's right there? But both came away with some good results this time. Of course, Evander still coming back into form. The fingers crossed that this is the Evander from last year for Portland, and that there's just going to be consistencies right there that we can be playing on. And then the final two I have, Jack McGlynn. I know we talked a little bit about Houston, but he has crazy high underlying bonus point numbers. If you haven't checked him out, like 1 to 2, 2+, like leans towards the 2, like double-digit key passes. Like the guy is just racking in the points, and it's so crazy to see. Similar to like a Rusnak right there. So fantastic points. And then finally, you guys also mentioned on this, defenders. It's been hard, but if you look at the scores, it's kind of a tale of two cities right here. If you look at the overall scores, the premium defenders are leading the way. The high 8s, the 9 million plus players, they're coming in with the biggest stats. This past round, it was hardly anybody even cracking 7 million came away with the top defender scores for this round. So for me, the defensive strategy that I'm still going to be employing going forward is maybe you'll have one premium defender at least on your team. Maybe 2 if you're going to splurge right there. But as far as I'm concerned, with the way everything's been going with clean sheets and defense, unless things start to really solidify one way or the other, give me 1 or 2 regular guys who are in the offense, and I'm just going to look for the cheap guys on the teams that I like to save some money, push it all in there to be that offensive-focused team. So value defenders, I think, are still the go-to play at this point in the game going forward. Let's go to chat real quick, see if anybody else has any mention. Let's see here. Going through there. Yes, yeah, Megan, you had a great score. I want to definitely make sure I called you out right there. She had Anthony, just so you know. Meg had Anthony, but scrubbed him out because her bench hit. So,
well, I mean, the spoils.
Hey, it is
right?
what it is. It is what it is. So the rich just get richer right there. So well done. Well, thank you all for those comments in chat. Thank you all for listening so far. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about some quick housekeeping before we talk about the players to target going into round 7. Okay. Yeah, those are 2 good ones to bring in, Meg. Can't say.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with that. I've been toying with him. I had him in a different week, and he semi-popped, but DaCosta did better. And I was like, Ashley, don't try to fight against it. for a split second thought about it this week, but I didn't do it. Kudos to you, Meg.
What's your Discord name, Jimmy?
What is that, Jimmy?
Oh, are you waiting for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, are you talking?
Sorry,
You're okay.
you
No,
asked
you're
my
fine.
Discord name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are you on Discord? Faces
oh,
to names. Faces to names.
So okay, I wanted to bring this up. I think one of the reasons also that I'm like struggling this season is I haven't been on Discord as much, and I like think that is like
Yeah, you gotta
such
do it.
that is even more so than listening to the podcast every week. I think being on Discord is the most important
You
piece of
say it
being
every
involved.
week.
Yep. I think I don't know. I haven't been on it all this year, so I think it's probably the same handle I have on Twitter, which is Jimmy King 35.
Okay.
But
I like that. That's
I admittedly have not been on this season, so haven't been very active this year, which I clearly need to do.
Jimmy King is a great sports writer name. I mean, I believe that it's your real name, but like that is like you didn't have a lot of other career choices. I feel like you had to do something like that with a name like that.
Yeah, I've been told that.
Yeah.
It's always been something that people have said, and so I used to work in music and
I bet that was
kind
me
of the
too.
same thing. People were like,
Yes.
that's a very like stage name.
My son's name is Sawyer Savage,
Okay.
and I was
Yeah.
like, "Guy, you gotta live up. That's a good name. You gotta
Yep. But yeah,
alliteration." Yeah.
I will make an effort to be more on Discord
Okay, good.
going forward, and I believe if anyone is interested in keeping up with what I have to say, it should be Jimmy King 35.
There we go.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, I got the social out for our second segment. So again, if you guys are listening, please do be so kind and like and retweet that out there on Twitter X and Blue Sky, and we will get our second segment. Hello and welcome back. We're talking the players who we are targeting going into round 7. But first, just a quick little housekeeping up here. Games start on Saturday, April 5th. Hello, it's already April at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Charlotte FC versus Nashville SC. As far as your auto-route planning goes, we also have some of that usual Apple TV lineup right there, but we have a couple of early games this week that the Charlotte Nashville's at 2:30, and then Real Salt Lake versus LA Galaxy at 4:30. Everything else is coming in at 7:30 and 8:30 mostly, with a couple of one 9:30, one 10:30 games. So a spread there on Saturday. Sunday, you've got 3 games: New York City versus Minnesota, San Jose versus DC, and then Inter Miami versus Toronto to round everything out. So plenty of ability to get your ruse all worked in for that in this round. Nobody's on a bye, but we do have some teams who are playing specifically who are playing in CCC to keep up with. The home teams are Vancouver, LAFC, and LA Galaxy. And then the lone away team that we have is Miami. And so once again, we're going to be in a messy watch. We need a graphic for that. Let's get this figured. Let's get this figured out. Kenobi, let's get this figured out. Let's get a graphic for this and go. So yes, but we'll have that CCC there. And of course, we'll see what kind of rotations happen from that. To keep up to date on all of that, head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord channel. It's where all the chat goes, and we have the mega reference right there in the fantasy tools section, which is just a quick collection of all those resources that you need to be able to have good planning for these types of absences and way to navigate these bumps. So the quickest way to get that is mlsfantasyboss.com/discord. Now, let's talk about the players who we are targeting. Monday, it's early. I know we're still digesting, but Jimmy, kick us off. Tell us who you're looking at, keepers and defenders.
Okay, so I think with keepers, I think everyone is going to be on the same page that Schulte is probably the main go-to for the early set of games. Probably leaning into Ustari for Miami. That being said, he did come off at the end of the Union game hurt. There was a little bit of wondering if maybe it was tactical, his injury, and not so much an actual injury. That being said, I haven't looked into it. So if someone comes in the chat and is like, "Oh, he broke his leg," I apologize. I really do.
Yeah.
that to say that I have no idea if he is going to be available or not this weekend. But I think that calendar is cheap enough that you could probably still go with him, although probably not as enticing. Um, I just don't know that there's anyone else that I love from the other three games on Sunday to switch to if he is not available. And obviously, you don't know that because they play the last game. So I'm pretty much leaning and going with one goalkeeper and hoping that Ustari is available on Sunday. As for defenders, going with Herrera with Columbus, I think he's probably the best cheaper option. Would love somebody from Cincinnati, but budget is an issue with them. Yedlin's probably the one that is going to be most viable for me with all the other names I'm looking to have in the team. If Tate Johnson from Vancouver plays, he's someone I'm willing to have in my team with the price that he's at. Although I am not super confident in Vancouver keeping a clean sheet against Colorado. And then some of the other names I had were John Gallagher, simply because every time I pick him, he seems to score a goal. I don't know what it is. I have amazing luck with John Gallagher. He'll probably get a red card this week now that I talked him up. But he's someone that I'm always willing to kind of take a flyer on if I have enough money. And I am looking for a random goal contribution from a defender. So those are some of the names I'm looking at. If Kai Wagner's available, I'm really interested in getting him in the team. He does so much for Union's chance creation, leading, I think, not only the team but maybe even the league in assists right now. And you can see that they were struggling to find ways to get the ball in the box without Kai the other night. Although I do think that Union created enough chances to win against Miami. But yeah, so that's the only other name that I was really considering right off the bat.
All right, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy and I are just
I know, I'm sorry.
here. So it's okay. I'll try not. No. That's part of the show. And then Reid comes in and he tells us all the different things, and that's what we do. You're great. I don't even want to say I'm having a budget problem because I know Reid will hop all over me. I'm not, but I thought this week I didn't have to care anymore. It felt like I was there, but I do still have to care. So I'm gonna. I also am looking at Schulte to Starry. I am hoping that I'll just scrub him. So I'm honestly not really paying attention to anyone else. If I have to, I have to. Schulte's pretty expensive. I would rather just keep those points. And I like that matchup. I like the timing. So I'm there. And then I try to double up with a defender with whoever I anticipate my starting goalkeeper to be. So Herrera is who I like. I like the price and I like his point production. So he's was quick in. It hasn't equated yet, and Reid, hop in here if you have extra comments, but I like how DeAndre Edlin fits into the FC Cincinnati team. I like when he does get up, he hasn't gotten offensive points yet. He's on the same side, right, as Orejano normally. And I think that's probably kind of why. I've said this lightly a couple of times, but I'm not here for the Orejano price. I love out of position. I mean, I've tinkered some out of position players into my team more time than I can count. I tinkered Ali Ahmed into my team the other week because I like out of position. He's too expensive and has not yet popped, which means you're welcome, everybody. He probably will this week. But I just cannot talk myself into it yet without the clean sheets. There just haven't been as many clean sheets for FC Cincinnati. And he hasn't yet contributed offensively on the score sheet, except for his first game of the year, which he got, a 9 Reid, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm looking other places in that FCC backline, and Yedlin kind of fits that budget for me. I really like, I always say his name wrong, Malanda for Charlotte. I don't know if anybody remembers, but The other weekend, I went for a Charlotte clean sheet. I liked it. Home game against San Jose. Not only did they lose the clean sheet on a PK, but the defender that got the red card to give away the PK was the defender that I chose. So I'm sticking to, and I could have afforded Milanda. I just was like, well, I'll switch. I'll do a different defender. Maybe he'll get more bonus points than Milanda because everyone's going him. So that was dumb, and so I'm just going with what I normally do. I think I'd privet. I like Milanda. He is also expensive. I understand the hypocrisy in that, but he's not. I'm not paying for it because he's out of position. I'm paying for it because he gets consistent clean sheets and bonus points at home, and they're at home in a relatively good matchup. I mean, Nashville has scored. I don't know that it's not picking against Nashville, it's picking for Charlotte, especially for a bounce back game like they just had, down in Colorado. So, and then I really like the Tate Johnson shout. I mean, there's some players for Vancouver that are playing more offensively or are playing in better spots, but he's a cheap guy that should continue to price rise. If he plays, and with CCC, I would expect him to, I think. And then I don't know if he'll play. He's still a yellow in the game, but if you're looking for price rise, just price rise, I wish Tyler was here. Smolyakov.
Own it.
Smolyakov?
Just own it.
From LAFC plays this weekend. He should price rise because he had not played at all in the game, and then in fantasy, and then he scored a goal last weekend. So he played the game and scored a goal. He didn't come in as a sub. So I just, financially, that's something that I like to try to look at. I don't know that I'd play him. I don't love LAFC for a shutout, but that is a 4.9 defender that if he plays and just contributes, he should get a secondary price rise. So that's an easy, $5 million, which is hard to be consistent with at this phase in the game,
So here I'll come in now, just kind of do my little wrap up like Ashley talked about there. No, keepers, I think 100% Schulte is going to be one of the most chalky keepers options to go with. And I like that. A comment made in chat was that there was some lacking of confidence about the Columbus clean sheet because Montreal was playing a little bit better the last round. That's fine. The thing that's going to skew you about Montreal right now that people need to remember is all of their games have been on the road. They haven't had home games yet. So they're going to have a big, massive just run.
Are they doing a remodel? What is it?
I don't know if it's a remodel or if it's just cold or whatever, but Eric tells what's going on. But as typical, they start often with a long road series at the beginning. That's what's going on right here.
Yeah.
But Columbus has had 2 straight clean sheets at home. The first time they've given up 2 goals at home over their first 3 home games. Now those 2 goals were the opening game, and Schulte was in the goal, but he kept a clean sheet on the next one, and then Bush was there when he was gone, and he kept a clean sheet. So I'm feeling a bit more confident in the home defensive unit for Columbus against what I still would categorize as a weaker Montreal team, and so I like that as the first match. Fits well into your keeperoos, though. Second one, if you're not going with Ulstari, which you definitely can, and the benefit you have is the CCC game. You can see what Miami trots out for CCC, see if he's on the bench, see if he plays. I mean, if he plays, you're pretty much golden. If he's on the bench, just keep an eye on what's going on. Go to Discord, see if people can get some insight for you right there. If not, going one keeper like Jimmy was saying, totally viable, especially at this time of the year. Otherwise, you're going to have to drop some cash if you want to go with that. The most common one that I've seen, and I have in my team right now, which is definitely a downgrade target for me, is going with Kalina, with just the run that Charlotte's been on and some of the struggles that Nashville has had. I think, again, a good option there for him. You could look at Celentano as well. The Cincinnati's defense is getting better, not what it could be, but people are back from red cards. People are back from illnesses and injuries, so it's getting better. And Celentano's a quality keeper, slightly cheaper than Kalina. My only hesitation there is, like I said, I've not really pegged down New England yet. Still such a new team, and Heel's coming off that brace, so he'll definitely have some confidence behind him right there. Going to defense, as you all have already said, I like matching things up. Charlotte, Columbus, Cincinnati, maybe Austin for me, kind of the top three. If you're looking for some more value, I know you all were both talking about Yedlin right there. Let me throw two more names at you for Cincinnati if you want to find a cheaper way to get into that system. The first one is Flores 5.0. Definitely the preferred pairing back there with Robinson right now, especially with Miazga out. He missed that one game because of the red card. Then he came right back in, got the full 90. He is definitely not there while Hagelin's working up for fitness. So Flores at 5.0, definitely an easy one. Slightly more expensive. Engel has been starting with the team, and so he's another one that you could look at potentially with for saving some money. But for me, it would be Flores. Just a 5.0, I feel much more consistent with him. He's playing back there in that center, so not going to get up for those offensive points. That is definitely an advantage of Yedlin, who is also 5.6, but you can save yourself 0.6 if you wanted to go with Flores right there. Otherwise, I do have Orshano in my team right now. Again, it's another downgrade target as I think through the price, because you could easily downgrade him, save 3-4 million right there to shift into something else, shift into your midfield, especially if you end up, if I shift down to Ulster as well for the keeper. So, but I do have him as I'm just thinking through my head what I want it to look like with the team. He has been getting more involved in those offensive opportunities are there. But I think he is in play this week. Otherwise, I have one more question I'm going to put at you, Jimmy. I've seen some people mention some stuff in chat. I saw Vancouver mentioned, which I'm not discounting Colorado because I feel like they've got some behind them. But I saw people mention Orlando's defense on the road. Now, maybe Kai Wagner could be someone you look at if you want to go with that. I'd fear some Orlando offensive chops. But would you be betting on Orlando's defense against your Philadelphia Union?
No, although I do think someone that is a decent pick if you are short on money and need somebody from that early games. I think Alex Freeman from Orlando's defense is still relatively small, cheap.
5'6".
Yep, and he's been getting some goal contributions, some bonus points even when they're not keeping clean sheets. So I think he's a decent option. Just looking at Orlando's defense, they have given up, or they're tied for the most goals conceded in the league with Toronto and Sporting Kansas City and LA Galaxy. And Union's attack is pretty good. That was never the issue last year. They were one of the best attacking teams last year. They're one of the better attacking teams so far this year. So I wouldn't put too much of my money in an Orlando clean sheet this week, especially because Union are everyone's back from international break. Everyone, maybe other than Kai Wagner, is healthy. So I see goals coming from the Union in this game, especially being at home, and especially coming after a game where I think they feel like they should have gotten at least a point in Miami. They outshot them like 17-9 and had 6 big chances to their 3. So they
got messied. I mean, that's only.
They did. They really did.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put too much thought in an Orlando clean sheet, but I do think that there is a viable option on that team with Alex Freeman.
Yeah, great shout out there. Thanks for that comment there in chat. Let's keep talking about where some of these goal contributions may come from and move into our midfielders section. Ashley, who are you looking at?
Yeah, Evander was one of the first middies in my team this week. It's nice to see him producing. I'm selfishly happy that you're out of CCC so that he can just contribute to MLS now. And then, like I kind of said in the opening, I'm gonna just finally bite the bullet and pick Rusnak up this week. It's another travel week, which for Seattle, which I don't love, but like I think very quietly, Albert Rusnak is the leading scorer in FMLS right now. By I think 4 or 5 points. So not like a crazy lead, but he's contributing to goals and assists, and he is really creating bonus points like we used to see from him at RSL. That has not always been his role. I was low on him when Jordan Morris got hurt because there's a lot of connectivity there. He's still not connecting with Jesus Ferreira necessarily, but he is playing well enough on his own in that 10 role that I think he's worth a shout against a San Diego team that's not incredibly solid defensively and, have let a couple in at home already. So I think, why not with him this week? On the literally the other side of it, I do still like Dryer. I know there's a lot of uproar about what didn't count, and I will say, through no fault of anyone's, I don't know why this was like this. I'm a person that doesn't get to watch a lot of the games on the weekend, but I turn my alerts on, and so there were, I think, 5 or 6 times where I got an alert that said someone scored that didn't, or someone assisted that didn't. And when I opened fantasy on, what was it, Saturday night, Sunday night, I thought that Dryer had 2 assists just based on the alerts that MLS gave me, right? So there was a lot of craziness going on. It wasn't just him. They credited Latte Lath with the goal that then they took back, and then he scored, and all these things. So yes, I'm still gonna give him a shout this week. I also, with no disrespect, I like Ojeda this week. Also, just consistently producing every week in a low key way. He's had a couple of slower weeks, but just doing so well, really fitting into that offense. And then I want to give Christian Espinoza a shout. He hasn't, he is a player I think we could loop in with those who we've touched on previously who isn't quite doing the things we expect him to do. I like the matchup, but he's kind of on the bubble for me. And some of my bubble picks, if I choose to replace him, which I might, are Beal from Charlotte. Again, decent home matchup. Nashville has a pretty good defense, but not as much on the road. I like Forsberg. He seems to be getting into his form. Almiron getting his first goal back with Atlanta, another home game for Atlanta. And then, like Reid said earlier, Jack McGlynn, he's definitely someone that we've talked about in a lighter way, but his bonus point production has been pretty consistent. And so I do wonder who else from Houston can help him, which is why currently, he's a bubble player for me. But LAFC have been anything but consistent, especially on the road. So this might be a good game for him.
Jimmy.
Yeah, me and Ashley have a lot of the same picks, so I'm gonna try to give a couple different insights here. Ojeda was the first guy on my team, other than a 3 that he had, I think in game week 3, his lowest score is a 7. So he's like one of the few people that has just been kind of set and forget in my team. Don't really have to worry about the matchup too much. He just seems to be reckoned in points whether he's the one scoring or not. So he was an easy pick. Evander was also the next person on my team from midfield. Really like him, and I think he's only going to continue to grow in Cincinnati's team now that they can focus on MLS. I am interested in a Union midfielder. I I'm almost thinking about Quinn Sullivan, weirdly. He hasn't scored yet this year, but he has 1 less point than Daniel Gazdag, who we know is like the goal scorer for Union. Um, he he's a really focal point in Union's attack, and I feel I don't know, I just have a weird feeling about him, and he's a little bit cheaper than a lot of the midfielders that we're talking about and aiming at for right now. So he's someone that I wanted to bring up. Some other names I had, you mentioned BL from Charlotte. I've thought about him 3 or 4 times this season, and I feel like every time I think about him and don't pick him up, he ends up scoring. So now that I'm thinking about picking, I probably will. You probably won't. And then I also really liked Forsberg's matchup this week, and Segovia if he ends up playing for Miami. I think he was dealing with a little bit of an injury that kept him from starting, or maybe he was just coming back from international duty this past week, I think, rather. So I think he should be good to go if he doesn't put in a lot of minutes in midweek. And he's someone that's relatively cheap that you can throw in your team as a switcheroo as well. So those are some of the names that I kind of had on there. Also was looking at Dryer from San Diego. Let's see, there's one other name I wanted to bring up. Give me just 1 second. Oh yeah, I just wanted to touch more on what Ashley said. I'm both on Espinoza. He in the past has been like one of the go-tos for me. And so I've been super disappointed. I've been burned by him a couple times this year, and I really like his matchup this week. But I'm nervous to go back to him after I think he had a 1 last week when he was in my team. And then Jack McGlynn, uh, he is going to continue doing exactly what he's doing in that Houston team. The main reason he left Philadelphia to go there is he's not a transition player. He doesn't run very fast.
Yeah.
He doesn't run very much. He's much better at getting on the ball and kind of pulling the strings and getting a lot of key passes and moving the ball up the field. So he's going to continue to get that in Houston, whether there's goal contributions on the end or not. So I think he's another person that you can kind of go to for those baseline bonus points.
Yeah, again, you guys have nailed a lot of the names that I think are already out there. Espinoza was a bit more of an easier ad for me at the beginning of this round. I know that he hasn't had some of the production that we wanted, but the last game they had against Seattle, actually, you guys did a good job kind of shutting that down. But before that, just a massive amount of bonus points being generated from key passes and from crosses. And with DC not having a fantastic defense, definitely one of the lower quality ones in the league that I think he's got opportunities there. I think I think San Jose's offense has opportunities there against DC, and I like his potential with there. So he was a bit more of an easy ad for me, but I definitely understand what you're saying about he haven't seen some of those. McGlynn we've covered. Rusnak, again, the numbers. Is the road curse gone? That's where some of his point production has been, but he's still been getting the underlying numbers that are there. And they're going against San Diego, which is not a bad defense. So going with Rusnak is really leaning into those underlying numbers for that. Lucho's in there because Atlanta is leaky. We saw that last week. Some of the guys I'm kind of bubble or just at least want to mention because they come up every week. Mukhtar versus that Charlotte defense. I just have more concerns about that. Definitely had opportunities during the Cincinnati game. Everybody did, but I rate Charlotte higher on their defense than that, and so I think he's just off the list for me. Atlanta is a toss-up, like we talked about there. There's kind of two players who are vying for those points, and I think maybe they're a fifth midfielder for you if you want to go that direction. But I think they're a bubble there for me. I already mentioned Heel. He's on maybe a beginning of some form. Cincinnati's defense is improving, but not a rank. So that could be another bubble player that you're looking at there. Definitely understand that. Beal, that's a great call out there. Just been on a great run of forming. Maybe one game he hasn't scored or assisted in. So he's just been on a great run of form and is not very expensive. And in that same vein, this would be if you can't afford Dreyer, because he is north of 10 million now, but you want someone in San Diego that's got some offensive chops, you can look at Valakari. He's also been very consistently with his scoring, 8 or less. I mean, he's right there, very friendly on the budget if you're just trying to shave a few more out there and still, but not really having a downside there. One player that I did look up, the last one I'll mention that I looked at early, but it's just been frustrating me, is Forsberg. That's one. I guess that for me would be the Espinoza, like you guys talked about there, is that I've just not seen the reward for what I would have expected from him going on there. He's pretty high up in the list. He's like 5th overall with the midfielders, but I've just not been able to kind of hit him. He's had a couple of big games that have brought him there at this point in the season, but 3 goals is all he's had. He's got okay underlying key pass numbers, but not the consistent double digits that we're seeing from a lot of these other guys. And so even against Chicago, which I don't rank very high, I found him frustrating to want to move in to like my top 5 or even like that top 6 or 7 kind of stretch right there. So if you go with him, I get it. He's had some success. He's high in the overall numbers. He gets some bonus points. But for me, I've just not really seen what I'm paying for at that pushing 10 million of a midfielder. All right, quick check to chat. Rusnak price. Yeah. Ashley, quick to you. Is Rusnak worth the money?
If he's the highest scoring player in the game, I would say yes, right?
11.3. He's just 0.10, 0.1 under Messi as far as cost.
What a dream, right? See, these are the questions I want to ask. I think it's a road game against a team we still don't know a ton about because San Diego's so new. So maybe not this round, but I think, he didn't start crazy high. He's just produced weekly, so he's continued to go up. So I'm such the wrong person to ask because I've only had him like once this season. I've been very like meh about him, but he's doing it. So
he started in the eights. He's gone up 3 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Since the season started, so it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to the top of the field. This one was fun for me. Let's talk about forwards. Jimmy, who are you looking at?
Yeah, let's see here. So, obviously, most people are going to have Messi depending on, the whole Messi, Suarez, Aru thing. I feel like a lot of people are going to be leaning on this week. But I feel like there is some variance in the other options this week, which was fun for me to kind of put together. Diego Rossi was probably the first I had. Don't know why. I just love that matchup for him this week. Really like Luis Muriel from Orlando. He really struggled for Orlando when he first got there, and then he scored twice against the Union last year, and he's been playing really well this year. And Orlando they have been scoring a lot of goals, so I think that there are goals to be had from both teams in Orlando and Philadelphia. And so he's someone that I'm considering, although not one of my higher choices. Latte Loth is probably the one I will lean towards going with. Chicho Arango is another one I really liked. And then obviously people are going to know about Ty Baribo and the form that he's been on this year, but I think there's an opportunity for a really good enabler. I don't know anything yet, but I have a feeling that Bruno Damiani is going to start for Union alongside Baribo this week. He's Union's record signing. He came in just before preseason ended or just after it, so he's had a little bit of a slower start to the year. But Michael Ua is not playing up to par right now, and I could really see Bradley Carnell going with Damiani and Baribo up top. And Damiani is the only player in the top 20 players of MLS in expected goals that has played less than 200 minutes. So in a small sample size, he's played really well. The only other person in the top 20 that or that's cracked the top 20 in expected goals under 250 minutes is Messi. So I'm not saying he's Lionel Messi, but I think
we're not saying he's not. We're not saying he's right next. He's right next to him.
Exactly. So and he's really cheap. I think he is $6.5 million right now, and
the striker is great.
Yeah, and I think that people really save some of their budget elsewhere, use that money elsewhere. So I think if people are looking for a really cheap but promising and good bench play this week, I would look for Bruno Damiani starting for the Union this week.
Ashley,
love that insider take. I'm really hopping on this Latte Loft bandwagon, you guys. I like him. I watched an Atlanta game. It was the Miami game, and I got so annoyed with how often they said he was the record signing for MLS. So it made me not want to like him. Like, it was just so every time he touched the friggin' ball. And Atlanta strikers, GG as well, have been relatively hot and cold. And like, when they've been hot, they've been hot. But when they've been cold, they've been cold. And so I just wasn't quite on board yet. I'm pretty on board. I feel really good about hopping on that one now. I am gonna do, the same thing I do every week. I feel like Charlie Brown and Messi is Lucy holding the football, but I'm going at it again. I'm gonna have him and just have a plan to not. I understand why they Sunday night soccer them every week, but is really annoying. It's really annoying to play fantasy with them when they're always a Sunday game, but this is where we are, right? You got to figure out how to adjust. How people adjusted to him not starting last round, I think, was very telling. And like who you went to, who'd you captain instead, all those things. And then I'll echo Jimmy. I really like Diego Rossi this week. He was able to produce last week. It was on the road against a crappy team, but I like this matchup. I like no CCC. But I'm also my bubble pick would definitely be Benteke. When we talk inconsistency, he's not one of the people that I consider to be inconsistent. He's not necessarily getting a brace or always hitting double digits, but he's getting goal contributions. And when he's not getting goal contributions, he's getting bonus points, which is different for him than other, last season, I should say. So it's a decent matchup. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. And then I agree that it looks as though Chicho is starting to spark, and he is at home playing a pretty garbage defense. So they're on the bubble for me, and unfortunately I can't just replace Messi with one of them because of the timing, but I definitely like those two, and may end up with them in my team instead of somebody else.
Real quick, Reed, before you go on to yours, I did just want this just came up on my timeline as I was scrolling. Fabian Renkel, who's someone that covers MLS as a whole. I don't think he necessarily does one team right now or anymore, but he reported today that Lionel Messi and Suarez will travel to LA this week. Not to say that they'll play, but I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
For your Suarez Zaruz,
sure.
if something you're
Yeah.
playing.
Yep, I mean that is the thing, because at that point, if you're going with Messi, Suarez is your backup. I mean, I guess technically anybody they're running up top is your backup, but he's the preferred backup that you're going to have unless you're going to switch to Toronto, which is likely not going to happen. So big questions there again. We'll be sure to cover that as we get later into the week. But yeah, so for me, of course, Messi is number one right now. He's almost like Miami is at almost the 2-goal per game mark as far as home chance to score, and they're going up against Toronto, which is the third worst defense in the league as far as being on road defense in the league as far as what they're allowing so far. After that, for me, it was Arango was my number two. Similar to what I was talking about with Espinosa, it's what influenced that is he's got 3 goals over his last 5 games, and he's averaging 1 to 2 bonus points off of key passes. So that's a nice thing for a forward to be having, especially when you're going up against the league's worst away defense, being DC United. And so I feel like last week maybe was just a little bit of a blip for them. Went up against Seattle, so not a tough team, tough team. And so props, a tough team. But so I feel like DC will be a much better opportunity for Arango to get back into that click, and so I like the opportunities that I think he'll have right there. And then for me, Latte Lath was the third one. Really like the form, really like everything that's going on with him right now. I think Dallas has some opportunities. Funny enough, that I said DC's was the worst away offense, Toronto's was the third worst away offense. The second worst away offense is LAFC. That's just they've 8 goals over 3 games, and so that maybe plays into some of what you're looking into with those Houston options right there. But yeah, those are some reasons I'm looking at some of those players there. I totally understand why you guys are looking at the other ones. Rossi was one that kind of caught me off guard, but that's really playing into that Montreal game. The 2 times he's popped off this year have been against weaker teams, so they've been in CCC. So big caveat right there. There's been some struggle though with better defenses, but the poorer defenses he has gone off on, and so that is absolutely in that mix right there. I saw people talking about Baribo. Just see, as Jimmy was saying, what those lineups might look like. The only thing about Baribo, if you're even thinking about this anymore right now, is his 2 higher games are falling off of his point recency, and so if he does not do well, you may see some backsliding in his value. You may lose a little bit. You might be at the point very much like Ashley where that's not that big of a deal. But if you are still thinking about that, you could see some negative points with him going through at this time. And so the big question, though, is going to be Sporting Kansas City. That's just for this whole round. What's going to happen without Vermees at home? What can they do? This is a learning opportunity from Sporting Kansas City, and who could potentially be an opportunity for you right there. I mean, we've got Joveljic there, which was someone we talked a lot about last year. Could this be a time to go with that? We'll see. But more to come, definitely, with Sporting Kansas City. Let's wrap everything up with our captain's picks. So the way we do this, as we've morphed the season, is Ashley, who's your captain, and then who's your Messi backup?
I just want to say in my notes, I actually wrote Messi ? Is that safe now ? Probably not. So I feel like I've learned at this point. I want it to be Messi because they're at home versus Toronto, but they've got CCC. It's across the country. Is he healthy? No one knows. So my fallback is Evander. I want it to be Messi. I'm going to pay attention to CCC. I'm going to see what he does or doesn't do there, and then make a decision. But based on CCC, if I decide I don't think this is going to pan out, maybe I'll still have him, but I won't captain him. Evander is my backup, who doesn't always do. He gives me a little bit of uneasiness, just from historically captaining him, but it's the one that made the most sense to me in my gut.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't enjoy this whole like roundabout we have to do if Messi's going to play on the last game or not. And likewise of Ashley, I don't like leaving my captain for the last game for that reason. And I struggle to find a second option now.
Yeah.
Evander's probably the best one. I thought about Ojeda just because his floor seems to be relatively high. That being said, he's on the road, so not the most favorable matchup. That being said, with kind of the season that I've had so far and needing or wanting to make up some ground, I'm kind of leaning towards if I think that Messi may not start, just throwing the armband on anyone or on someone just for the fun of it. And I think that's like where I'm at right now is like I don't want to get too caught up in this game, and I just want to like go back to having a little bit of fun with it. And sometimes the things that I have to think about like don't make it as fun for me. And likewise, not doing well doesn't make it fun either. So if that decision goes badly, obviously I'm digging myself in a little bit of a deeper hole. But I think I'm willing to take a flyer on someone if I get that Messi isn't going to play a considerable amount. But if he is, the armband will be on him.
Yeah, for me, it's on Messi right now. Waiting to see what happens throughout the rest of the week. If Suarez is in the lineup, it's an EV pivot over to him. If I lose the nerve to go with Messi, it's up in the air right now for me. It's looking at Rusnak, Evander, Espinoza all in the mix. Not sure if I'm going to go with the forward captain again. That's what got me last week, but I could definitely see people want to go with someone like Latte Lath or Rossi or Arango, someone like that as a backup. I think those are in the mix. So don't have to decide that yet. But for me, it's the Messi Suarez would be what my first option would be. And then after that, I'd be looking at Evander, Espinoza, and Rusnak pulling in that second, third spot right there as it settles down in. You'll get more of that near the end of the week. Ashley and I are rotating videos on YouTube, the little short videos where we give you some insights into our captains near the end of the week. So I am up to bat this time, and so you can expect my thoughts closer to the end of the week. So I'll be sure to think about this one hard for you all. All right, well, that's all that we have for the show tonight. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for joining us. And so we hope that I'm building into it.
Sorry.
I'm building
I
into
thought
it.
you forgot. I
can see why you might have thought that, but I did not.
Sorry.
But since you mentioned it, let's start talking about plugs. Ashley, do you even have one?
I do have one. That's why I cared so much. I normally don't, and I make something up or I do Discord because it's so important to me. But tonight my plug is someone is Ranchinator, but I know is Tyler Norman. And my sweet little baby Tyler got engaged. And I did ask him if I could say that. But I'm so excited for him. So if you have ever taken a differential or interacted with him on Discord, just give him a virtual high five hug. Because I'm just very excited for him. So I know it's a very girly plug, but you know what? I'm a girl.
Can't beat that. Jimmy, try.
Yeah, you can find well, first I want to plug MLS community both here and elsewhere. Got a good friend. Or I shouldn't say he's a friend. We only talk online, but I feel like that is friends now.
That's friends.
I think on your podcast a couple weeks ago. He goes by Gavin at MLS Fantasy Picks. Someone else who's creating content. I love having just more opinions out there on the game. I am someone who gets stuck on my ideas and I don't think about things from a full perspective. So having those different angles and viewpoints is always wonderful to have. And I encourage more people to make fantasy content. If anybody's listening, just do it. I think you'll have a lot of fun, and the people that you'll meet through it is enough in itself. And I also wanted to plug again, if interested in keeping up with me, I'm mostly on Twitter, Jimmy King 35. Obviously, do a lot of the Union stuff, but do a lot of Philly stuff in general. Do a lot of like Philly walking and just like culture content. So if that's interesting to you, you can find me at Twitter, and then also at Philly Sports Network. And like I said, we cover all 5 Philly teams and are credentialed to all 5 teams. So really great coverage for all 5 teams if that's of interest to you. And you can find that at phillysportsnetwork.com.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Fun preview. Gavin will actually be our guest next week on the show. So
look at us.
There we go. Little quick plug right there. As for me, thank you so much. Again, please do check out MLSFantasyBoss.com. We've got a great lineup of articles that have been coming out this year. So get all the info and tips right there. And of course, as we mentioned multiple times tonight, check out the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord community. It is just such a great place to bounce ideas and just see breaking news as it is happening. And the best part is there are some of the best players in this game who hang out in that chat and are very happy to share their insights about what's going on. So head over MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord to get there, or just hang out at MLSFantasyBoss.com for the articles. So come for the Discord, stay for the articles. It's all kinds of fun. So we hope you enjoyed the information tonight. And as always, good luck.